This is the Kitchen Sink WP podcast, episode 652.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. We have the technology.
Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, first and foremost, full disclosure, I am not in my studio, so this sounds slightly different. It's because I am in my old home state of California. I'm in SoCal after traveling this past week. We'll get to that in a second. So anyway, moving on. Upcoming events. We have 4 next weekend. We have WordCamp Philippines, August 28th through 29th. WordPress Day CDMX, which is standing for Extended Meetup in Mexico City, August 29th. And WordCamp Lira 2026 on the 29th through 30th, and that is in Uganda. It's either Lira or Lyra. It might be Lyra, I think, actually. It's in Uganda. And lastly, WordPress Campus Connect Esparza, not no N in there, Esparza 2026 on August 29th in Costa Rica. So that is cool. So if you're in those parts of the world, as I would say, check those out. None in the States on that note. But the WordCampUS event that we're going to talk about here in a second, a lot of those are already up on WordPress.tv, so check those out. All right, moving on, segment 1 in the news. Only one thing to talk about here at the moment, and that is WordPress 7.1. Came out as expected last week. This one is codenamed Mary Lou, which honors a pioneering jazz pianist, arranger, and composer, Mary Lou Williams. I've been working on testing WordPress 7.1. It's been a while since I've done a core overview. So I've been using, RC1, 2, and 3. I will have that update coming out probably the next week or the week after at the latest. So keep an ear out for that. All right, moving on. Segment 2, the meat potatoes of this week's episode. So WordCampUS 2026 is officially in the books. And normally when I go to a WordCamp, one of my favorite things to do is find some first-time WordCamp attendees, first-time campers, as I call them, grab the microphone, or my phone in this case, ask them why they came, how did they hear about WordCamp, what did they learn, what surprised them, are they coming back? And interestingly enough, there were a lot of first-time attendees this year, but I did not do those interviews. Part of that was simply just timing, and part of it was how the week unfolded. But if I'm being completely authentic, I think part of it was because I was still trying to figure out exactly how I felt about WordCampUS myself. There was a lot that was good. There were also some things that made me stop to think about where these events and maybe the WordPress community itself is headed. So this isn't going to be the good, bad, and ugly, because there's really no ugly. There's maybe good, there's not so good, and then there's stuff that we need to start talking about. So starting with getting there, it was the adventure because of my life. First, how I made it to Phoenix. If you know, it took 2 tries, if you were paying attention on social media. The economics of going to WordCamp this year were also a little different for me. I scored a free ticket, even though admission was $100, but there was a 50% off coupon. And normally I wouldn't think about paying that. But given that I'm currently between full-time roles, I need to be thoughtful about where my money is being spent. So I happily took the free ticket that was offered up. I found that through Post Status. Another great piece, a reason to be part of a community. You find free stuff out there. I also had a place to stay that was covered. And thanks to my flight benefits through my wife, I was also able to fly out there from Raleigh to Phoenix for about $50. So that was pretty cool. Breakfast was covered where I was staying. Lunch was available at the conference. And I'm sure I only paid for, I think, like 2 meals the entire week I was there, 4 days I was there. So that's pretty coal. So financially, this ended up being a very reasonable conference for me to attend. And I'm glad I went for that. That part becomes important later, why it was actually that it worked out. Now, as far as Phoenix itself, one of the big complaints, obviously, when it was announced a year ago in Portland, Oregon, was it's Phoenix in August. So yeah, downtown Phoenix, pretty good. The restaurants are there, plenty of places to see, walk, and happening around the convention center. One issue, it's the temperature of the surface of the sun. We're talking 110 degrees during the day. And yes, I still ran. Of course I did. Not the highlight of the day, but I went out on Tuesday, 4:30 a.m., and it was already 91 degrees. But the humidity was only like 15%. So that day wasn't terrible. The next morning, supposed to be a group run, but I didn't really promote it all that much because I wasn't sure I was going to be there. Nobody showed up, just me. All good. I get it. It's early, it's hot. I still went for a run. That morning, also 91 degrees, but the humidity was closer to like 49%, and that was brutal. So, that's just part of where things are at there. Then you walk to the convention center, and suddenly, on the flip side of things, you're freezing inside. The air conditioning is working overtime. There may have been easy 30-degree temperature swing between the WordCamp and indoors and outdoors. And that is hard. You're just like, I was a bit shivering. I'm not going to lie on that. All right, the event itself. Now, the biggest thing I noticed was attendance. It felt low. I don't know that I need to get into exact numbers here because they're out there. How many tickets were sold, how many were free, how many were sponsors, but it basically, visually, you could feel it. And I think that was amplified by the venue itself. I mean, the Phoenix Convention Center is huge. The rooms are huge. The hallways are huge. Things are really spread out across all that. And even when a session had a respectable number of people in it, you could have attendees scattered across enormous rooms. And I felt bad for the speakers because I've spoken at conferences before, and there's an energy you get from a room when people are relatively close together. When everyone is spread out across the giant space, it becomes much harder to make that connection. It just does. The talks I did attend were good. Yes, I actually went to talks because, well, I wanted to this year, and I went to because the hallway track was kind of sparse, honestly. The content wasn't the problem. The keynote also really solid. The one I went to, I think there were a few. There was a speaker when I went. He has a background at Disney Imagineering and Meta. Interesting, entertaining, a little different, but I did appreciate it. I'm picky on my feedback and not feedback. I'm picky at keynotes, what I expect from them, and this was good. Now, the sponsor area and vendor area did feel much lighter than past WordCamps. And again, none of that was bad. It just felt different. Now, State of the Word also felt different because they didn't have a State of the Word. Matt does that, I think, at the end of the year now out of New York and the, what's that site they bought? Tumblr offices, I think. So anyway, rather than the traditional presentation, it was supposed to be more of a fireside chat with Robert Jacoby. It started late. There were some awkward moments. And there was, it was weird. There was no giant declarations, no drama. That's all I'm going to say about that. A conversation about just stuff, but I'm not sure what happened there. And we're all trying to figure out what's coming next from that. So yeah, that was awkward. I will say, I'm not going to lie. Anyway, now the thing that gave me hope, and here's the part that I think that matters. There were a lot of people attending their first WordCamp, like I said earlier. I had conversations with at least a dozen people who were either new to the WordCamp, never been to newer to WordPress, or experiencing WordCampUS for the first time. And that gives me hope. It really does. Because meanwhile, a lot of us have been around WordPress for 10, 15, 20 years. We're changing. Things have shifted for us. Some of us are leaving. Some are moving into AI. Some are changing careers. Some are consulting. Some are still doing WordPress, but it's just being done differently. I personally, still figuring out my next chapter. You know that if you listen to the podcast. That's normal. Community evolves. But if new people are still discovering WordPress and saying, hey, I want to be a part of this, that's a great and really important signal. The question becomes whether we're giving those people enough opportunities to actually become part of the community. And this is where WordCamp still absolutely works. The conversations. I caught up with longtime friends I hadn't seen in over a year or more. I met new people. I had conversations about WordPress, AI, business, careers, running, and everything in between. There were even a few conversations that may turn into something professionally, some possible consulting work, some mentoring opportunities, maybe a full-time opportunity. There was also a completely unplanned conversation about an opportunity with the mothership itself. We'll see where that goes. There are certainly some hurdles there, including the realities of a hiring freeze at that company. But that's WordCamp. Sometimes the most valuable sessions isn't on the schedule. Like I've said this before, it's the conversations you have in the hallway afterward or over lunch or dinner. Now, speaking of dinner might have been one of my favorite sessions. I mean, I use sessions here loosely. One of the evenings, I think it was the first evening I was there, I had a dinner with two other people. That was it. Nothing official, no giant party, no loud speaker event or sponsor event, just dinner. And because it was quieter and the conversations went deeper, and one person even said to me that I've been thinking about ever since, they told me literally, and I quote, they thought I was authentic. And I thought to myself, that's an interesting word. Am I? I like to think so. I'm certainly trying to be. This podcast has always been me sharing what I'm seeing, what I'm learning, what worked, what didn't work, and sometimes admitting that I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing next. But maybe authenticity isn't having everything figured out. Maybe it's being willing to say that you don't. I'm literally still chewing on that, pun intended, dinner chewing, all those things. But yeah, uh, it's still with me. I mean, it's been 4 days since that person said it. So thanks for that. And then there's something that cool that happened I want to share with you as well. Twice during lunch, I think it was Tuesday as well. Yeah, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyway, people recognized me because of this podcast, not because I'm some giant WordPress celebrity by far, by no means, but they recognized my voice. One was Katie. She popped over to the table I was sitting at. And she said, "Hey, you're Adam Silver." I honestly thought I was being punked. I looked around, like, said, "Who told you to come say that?" She's like, "No, no, really. I interviewed one of her friends at a previous WordCamp, US, like at Philly or St. Louis. I don't remember, 2018, 2019. That was pretty cool." The other one was Jack. He came as Katie left, and he came to sit down and join us. He apparently has been listening for quite a while. And one of the things he specifically mentioned was he appreciated my perspective and the brevity of the episodes. And I hear that a lot. People have always liked the fact that the show is short and succinct. And don't worry, I'm not going to turn KitchensinkWP into a 3-hour podcast. That's just not going to happen. But 12 years plus doing the show, having somebody walk up because they recognize your voice, still really cool. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of neat. So Katie, Jack, if you're listening, thank you so much. You made my day. You really did. So. All right. So I kind of want to give an overview, a ranking, if you will. Was it a good WordCamp? If I had to rank it, I'm going to give it a 5. It wasn't my favorite WordCamp. I mean, WordCamp Maui probably still owns that title. WordCamp Europe and Torino is way up there, probably number 2. But in fairness, we're talking about Maui, we're talking about Italy, so it's a little unfair. But Phoenix had some pretty stiff competition. Here's the strange thing. Even though I wouldn't rank the event itself amongst my favorites, I'm still really glad I went. I am. Because the value for me wasn't necessarily the sessions or the venue, it's the people. It's always been the people for me. And that's the bigger takeaway. So moving on, how do we fix this? Because I think things need to change. WordCampUS feeling smaller isn't necessarily the problem. The question is why it feels smaller. Well, for years, there was a natural path into the community. You discovered WordPress, and then maybe you found your local meetup. You started recognizing people. That meetup might produce a local WordCamp. Then you would eventually think, maybe I should go to WordCampUS. Those things fed each other. It grew organically, if you will. And over the last several years, a lot of that infrastructure has weakened. Meetups disappeared, local WordCamps disappeared, people changed careers, company changed budgets, sponsorships dollars moved around. Obviously, all that really started with COVID, and we just haven't come back from that 100% in the US. I want to be clear. Europe, in Asia, doing fantastic. So maybe revitalizing WordCampUS doesn't start with WordCampUS. Maybe it starts again with 10 people sitting in the back of a coffee shop talking about WordPress again, then 20 people, then 50. And then someone says, you know what? We should do a WordCamp. And suddenly that pipeline starts to rebuild. So I've also had a couple interesting conversations with new companies potentially entering the WordPress ecosystem as sponsors. So where do we go from here? Well, there's some chatter because of this location this year that next year's WordCamp might not be the same place for 2 years in a row as it has been in the past. It could be somewhere else. To be clear, I have no confirmation on that. It's just rumors, kind of heard in the hallway track. So we'll see what happens there. But wherever the next one is, changing cities alone is not going to solve everything. I think bigger work happens at the community level, meetups, local events, welcoming the new people, giving people reasons to connect offline again. I really believe that in real life, IRL has to happen. Things have changed, yes, but change is the only constant. It's the quote, right? Change is the only constant. WordPress has changed before, the web has changed before, our businesses have changed, our careers have changed, and now we're watching AI change almost everything around us again. So maybe this is simply another transition. We'll just call it that. And despite some of my concerns, walking around a very large convention center with fewer people than I remember seeing in years past, those first-time attendees gave me some optimism. It really did. I mean, there was a lot of hands that went up when that question was asked a few times. They're showing up. Now we need to make sure there's a community waiting for them when they get there. Because I remember finding WordPress when it was back in the WordPress itself was 2009. I found the community in 2013. And I realized I had really found my people. I really liked the next generation of WordPress users to have that same experience. Maybe the path back isn't all that complicated. Meetups lead to communities, communities lead to local WordCamps, local camps feed WordCampUS. We've done it before. Maybe, just maybe, if we all kind of just take a breath, have a sigh, and take a moment, we can do it again. Please, I'm asking you, please, can we do it again? Because it needs to be done. All right. That's my 30,000 foot view. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you want to share, let me know. You can always reach out. We can keep it private too. If you just want to vent, let me know how it was for you. I'm more than happy just to be an ear, as you all know. All right, moving on. Segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week is a website service called Progentic.com. Progentic.com. Progentic brings your CRM, employees, tickets, time, expenses, reporting, and invoicing together from first contact to paid invoice. Nothing slips through. I heard about this, I believe, through Howard Spaeth, who was on this podcast a few months ago as an interviewee. And I think he's behind it, if I recall, because I was in the hunt to replace FreshBooks, possibly. I'm still looking that over. We'll see what happens there. But as our partner right now, not really going to do that. So yeah, to be honest, again, there's a transparency I always offer. So check it out, progentic.com if you're interested. I have no other connection to it, but he mentioned it, I believe. I think it was him. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use that SpeakPipe function of the website. You can support the show, become a Patreon, buy me a coffee. That'd be great. You can also sponsor the show, form on the website to fill out. Do that, I'll get right back to you. And that'd be awesome. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right, bye-bye.